Today I'm going to be covering probably the most requested topic I've had so far, a day-by-day guide for conflict of nations. Let's begin. So for this video we are going to be using Mongolia as our example, as I feel with Mongolia, it will be easier for me to explain how much your terrain and surroundings should affect your playstyle. And how the two should complement each other for the best results. Now something to note when choosing the country you wish to play as, is that in conflict of nations not every country has an equal amount of production or cities. In most cases countries with larger land masses will have a city count to match. With the max being 9 homeland cities. Today with Mongolia we get 5 homeland cities. Another reason I mention this is because when playing conflict of nations, the first thing you should be aware of is what countries you neighbor and what they are likely to focus on. Playing as Mongolia we have the benefit of having few neighbors, though the neighbors we do have are unfortunately 2 of the largest countries you can play as. Now there is the obvious diplomatic route you could choose to take, by tapping on the Diplomacy tab, and sending your neighbor a message to see if they'd like to form a coalition. But for today's example, I will assume the latter. Now taking a look at my surroundings, I can see that although I share a large border with Russia to my north, it is unlikely he is going to attack me anytime soon. This is because although half of my country's border is shared with Russia, he only has one city close. With most of his cities being in his west. Leaving me to think he'll likely focus that direction first. Now further looking south, we can see a large portion of China's cities are to my southeast. So this is the direction I will pay most of my attention to for now. This information and the relative isolation of Mongolia will lead me to play a pretty heavily air-orientated match. And you may be thinking, what do you mean by that? Well, let me explain. Knowing that likely the amount of time I have to prepare is only limited by a potential Chinese invasion, I will first research the helicopter gunship. This is because the gunship only requires a level 1 airbase and arms industries to produce, after research. Meaning likely I can start producing multiple on the first day. With each gunship at Tier 1 dealing 7 damage to infantry units, even a 5 stack of Tier 1 gunships can be a devastating defensive tool. Now with the gunship being researched, we should start to build the necessary infrastructure to produce them. So with this in mind and knowing if I wish to expand, I'll likely have to fight either China or Russia. I will work to build a large base economy, through building and upgrading arms industries as often as I can, prioritizing the resources I will use the most of, such as electronics and supplies. This is because the arms industries gives the largest bonus to resource production, which increases with level. But for now it would be a good idea to build one in each of our cities right away. As today we aren't going to be producing any infantry units, to keep our upkeep as low as possible. Once your arms industries are finished, I would then build another airbase in my electronic city, allowing me to produce 2 gunships when they are researched without wrapping up day 1. On day 2 the first thing I would do is look to see if my neighbors are active or not. There are 2 ways you can do this. First way would be to look at their cities and see if they have built any infrastructure, or using the morale view look for dark red patches meaning the land has recently changed hands. After that I would probably research the air superiority fighter, and gather a stack of 3 to 5 of those, also before going on any offensive, allowing me to ensure my helicopters aren't targeted by their version of the same. Further upgrading arms industries with the extra resources as you can. By around day 3 you should have now researched the gunship and air superiority fighter, and have a stack of 5 each. If so I would then now research basic infantry and build an army base in every city. And start producing them straight after. Following this I would look to see if China is still active and if so if he is fighting any wars and where. Giving me a general idea for how prepared he will be and where his troops will roughly be. With this information I would gather 10 of my men on my most eastern border to take China's city in his northeast. Baiting him to push into my homeland, allowing me to react with my helicopters with full vision, weakening him while pushing my ground stack south. If he doesn't react, even better, just ensure to build airbase on provinces to give your aircraft range to support. I would also recommend having your air superiority fighters patrol above your infantry push to counter potential enemy strike planes or helicopters. Now you have researched 3 units, it is best to focus on upgrading these 3 instead of diversifying your research so early, as this will only lead to you having a lot of buildings you'll need to make to produce all the different types of troops and increase costs greatly. In my opinion, I would only research what is necessary when necessary. What I mean by this is if your neighbor is largely using air, you'll likely want to upgrade your air superiority fighters as soon as possible. Upgrading your infantry can also give you bonuses to their health, speed, and anti-air defense. So upgrade matching your expansion and material increase. It is important to keep momentum and always be observant to articles also, as articles can tell you what units your enemies have without you having to see them physically. This can help to work to counter